Bonjour à tous et bienvenue dans le blog Marketing Immobilier pour les pros. On continue le tour du monde avec la suite de l'interview de Stephean SCHWEICKART, le PDG de VScreen, qui est le leader de la vidéo immobilière aux États-Unis. Et après avoir parlé de la place de la vidéo dans le domaine de l'immobilier et ensuite des deux solutions de VScreen qui sont les vidéos annonces et vidéos de marché, tendance de marché, nous allons parler dans ce troisième et dernier podcast de l'interview de Stephean SCHWEICKART des tendances, en faire un peu de prospective pour voir quelles vont être les futures innovations autour de la vidéo dans le domaine de l'immobilier. Alors basculons en anglais pour poursuivre l'interview. À tout de suite.
So that leads us to the final discussion around the trends. Let's talk about this hyperlapse of Instagram, which is very interesting, where I've seen the demo that you have sent me. So this is a kind of tool that helps an amateur producing a quite good quality video with stabilization and contrast, adjustment, and all this. So for you, it's a good product, especially for community and
Yeah, I think it serves a couple of purposes. I think that every property needs really good photography to properly show, all the rooms of a house. There are two things that I think are missing though from most marketing. One, I want to see the neighborhood that the house is in, and hyperlapse does that. You can do Google Street View. I remember when my sister she moved to a different house in southeast Paris. I wanted to see, so I went on a Google Street View and walked around the streets, and that's how I would
that's cool.
figure out where she lived before I actually went over to visit to see what was around her place. But now with hyperlapse, you can walk around your street, spend 10 minutes walking, and then turn it into a 30-second video that walks the user, and you can see how much stuff is going on around the street. So you've got outside the home and the really close hyper-local vicinity. Then you've got pictures of inside the home. But I feel like one of the other things that's missing that hyperlapse solves is it connects all the pictures in the home. So I see the picture of the living room or the picture of the kitchen, but I don't know how they relate to each other in the flow of the home. So with hyperlapse, you walk in through the front door with your cell phone, you walk the entire house in and out of every bedroom, and then you're done. And then it turns it into a 30 to 60-second walkthrough of the entire house. And then you can visualize how all the rooms flow together. And I think that between the photos, the hyperlapse of the inside of the home, and the local community, it's a very effective tool. And that just got announced yesterday, so that is a very recent news.
Okay, so that's gonna be big. It's another argument to avoid hiring a professional, a pro doing video. Yep. I mean, all those tools, in fact, gives more and more ability for an agent to produce his own videos, or maybe an owner who wants to produce some additional content. Do you still think in the future, let's talk about 5 years time, do you still think that there will be a room for those custom, nicely done videos, professional videos, custom done?
I think there's always going to be room for that somewhere. I don't know if you know of a company called Matterport. Matterport just launched a software the other day, or not the other day, I should say earlier this year. It's a $5,000 camera, $4,500, and you sit it in all the corners of the room and take a picture, and it's a 360 picture.
Okay.
And then the software blends together the photo, so I can literally, as a user, walk the entire home. It's not, okay, so hyperlapse.
Yeah, it's a interactive 360.
It's totally interactive in 360, but it's not like I go into a room and then I do a 360 picture. I can literally, I can walk like Google Street View through the entire home. I could turn this way, look, I can walk through that door, walk down the hallway, and it is really cool. And I think that's kind of indicative of where the industry is going, is you've got overview videos, which is kind of what we do, and then you've got really hyper-focused videos of the actual property, which like Matterport, you drill down to inside, and I can walk through the home. Now that's expensive, and you need a professional to actually do it for you, versus hyperlapse is like the poor man's version, if you will, of Matterport, and where you can do it on your own, but you don't get the full experience that you get with Matterport. So I think that you're always going to need people to spoon feed you with information about a property, which is what like luxury video tours would do, if you will. But I think that you're just going to see a combination of tools that different brokers use because it meets the need of their local market more so than it would in another neighborhood, just depending on what kind of properties you're marketing.
Okay. The funny thing when I hear what you are saying is that in the States it looks like you always want to produce more and more precise description of and content about the property to offer virtually a visit of the property. But here in France, when we talk about producing videos, giving the right location, or all this, agents feel that it's not going to serve their cause, and that they are going to miss an open discussion that might happen if someone just finds just 2 or 3 pictures and just give a call, and then they will understand the need of the buyer and offer them the right property. This is the way how real estate agents here in France work, and I really have very commonly get this kind of answer. But apparently in the States you are not afraid at all of this, and you feel that a buyer can take his own tour virtually, and then will still contact the agent afterwards without.
There are lots of moving pieces in the purchase, and you still need to contact an agent. Which is also why I think that there are 1.2 million real estate agents in the country, and only about 300,000 of them are very, very like full-time and effective. It's because technology, I can go become an agent, put my credentials on Zillow, and I'm still, if I pay you money at Zillow, I'm going to still get the lead, and I can go sell you a home. But I don't. It's kind of unfortunate because it's kind of it lowers the standard, if you will, of the experience you're going to get. But at the same time, it's France or French culture is totally different than the States. Like when I go to France to visit my sister and we go out to dinner, it's an event. I mean, we sit there for a few hours and it's all social. And I feel like there's a lot more. It's high touch more so in France than it is in the States. I think a lot of communication in the States is very impersonal. And it's very tech driven, and if you get into an elevator, everybody's looking at their phone, and they don't even talk to each other. When I think it's totally different in France, although they never make eye contact in France. But yeah, I mean it's an interesting paradigm when you look at the difference in the way people communicate.
So surely there are some history and cultural difference behind all this, but there's also an evolution and. Well, a lot of things are explaining this difference. I think, but it's not easy to summarize all this in 5 minutes. But just to confirm, in the States, there's no problem at all in showing more and more something exhaustive, an exhaustive description of the property online.
Consumers are much more in control than they were 7 years ago, 5 years ago. And I'm buying a house on a lake in southern Indiana, in like the hills, in a month. And I went and looked at a couple of homes down there last month with an agent, and I knew 10 times more about what was for sale on the lake, the area, the culture, what the local attractions were. He was like, "How do you know all this?" And I said, "Oh, I just spent a few hours online researching because I know I want to live here, and I don't want to waste a bunch of time going around looking at houses with you when I can learn about it, focus in on the 4 properties I want to see because I've already researched the neighborhood, the statistics, everything." And so it streamlines the entire process. So I think that that's going to be something that as the French culture gets more adapted to technology, I think that time is valuable. I don't think you can ever replace though the personal connection. To walking somebody through, the biggest investment and transaction they'll ever do in their life. I also don't know how often people move in France.
Less than in the U.S.
Yeah, people relocate a lot more here, and so I feel like maybe they're more experienced in doing it themselves as well before getting an agent involved. But at the same time, I feel like because of that, it's less personable than it would be in France, where this is like the only, like I'll buy one home in the next 20 years versus in the States, you buy a new home every 7 years.
Okay.
So it's a totally different.
Yeah, and but all you're saying is that a buyer can discover most of the place and the surrounding and everything by himself. So why won't he bypass the agent at the end? In fact, this is another threat of French agents that think
And
if I give too
I don't
much,
think
they will just contact the owner and do the deal by themselves.
I don't think that'll ever happen. And here's why: because when I went and because I bought a house here recently, I needed the agent to. I tried to buy it by myself, and I know a lot about real estate. I'm thinking I got this. I don't need any help, right? But when I got into the transaction, I realized that there was a tree in a property line split the tree. So who owns that tree? An agent needed to figure that out for me. They apparently hadn't paid their taxes in a while, so they had like a lien on the house with the government, and the agent had to figure that out for me. I'm not going to go figure out who owes back taxes and who has liens, and I didn't know where to get insurance for the house, and I don't know about property insurance in France, but it's pretty important here. And the agent was able to walk me through that process. The closing. The legal paperwork that I have to sign, and we have disclosure statements that if there is something wrong with the house, the seller needs to tell me. I need an agent to walk me through that. So when you really get into the experience of purchasing, sitting down at a table and buying the home, you can't do that without an agent.
Okay, you don't have this expertise. Expertise is,
and nor do I have the time, and nor does anybody else. Okay. But I do have the time to search online to save a lot of people time, because I know what I want, because it's all available to me in the privacy of my living room as I sit there, drinking wine and eating pasta. I can just search for a home and I learn it all without having to go through all those steps with an agent.
Okay, and how much will it cost for someone to buy a house in the US? I mean, you want to buy a house. I think there are agents on the buyer side and on the seller side in the US.
Yeah, the average agent makes the usual percentage that goes to a real estate transaction is 6%. Typically 3% goes to the buying side, 3% goes to the selling side, and then different brokerages split up that 3%, between them and the agent in different ways. But usually the average commission is a 3% commission, of which the agent may see all of it, or they might see half of it, depending on what their relationship is and how their brokerage is set up.
Okay, and who pays for the marketing budget? I mean, investing in a video property tour, for example.
The agent typically.
The agent himself. So it's taken out of his 3% commission.
Yeah, there are different ways to do it. The agent will buy the marketing directly from the marketing company, or the broker will do a mass deal like we do for listing videos, where they buy thousands of it.
And then it's not that expensive. Okay.
And they bundle it into the agent's desk fees. An agent will pay $100 a month to be able to hang their license at that brokerage. Okay. And so that's part of their dues, if you will.
Okay, perfect. Just about the trends, does VScreen has any plan developing in Europe, or how do you? Is it, well, US market is huge already, so is it far enough for you, or do you have any plan to extend in Europe?
We've had discussions around it. We've actually, in the last 3 months, have had a huge spike in international inquiries. Everything from the United Emirates, to Dubai, to France, England, Australia, South Africa. We've seen probably more inquiries in the last three months from international companies than we have in the last 3 years. So again, it's just all this, I don't know what it is, but it's like just this pendulum is totally tipped in the last, few months, really. But really that last 18 months, video is much more front and center than it was, back in the past. I would say that video and the top 3 topics right now, outside of like all things marketing, video, mobile, and how to better engage with a mobile experience. And the third one, I would venture to say, would be, we call it the Uberization. I don't know if you have Uber in France. geolocating where an agent is and what I can do with that agent. Can they show me the property right now because I'm standing in front of the house and I'm standing there with the phone? Those are probably the top 3 subjects right now in the real estate community in the States.
Okay, good. Good. One last question. What kind of advice would you give to a French real estate agent? If you had only one a bit French, so you've been coming here several times.
Yep.
There are different culture. We've been talking about it, but so just
don't be afraid of technology. Technology is your friend. Embrace it, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It will become front and center in France as well. And know that technology will never replace you walking that buyer through the transaction process. It will only enable you to get more buyers and sellers to communicate with you, because you are that local resource for all things real estate related information that they find online. In the United States, 90+% of all home buyers start their search with Google and looking it up online. 90%. If you are heavy in technology, you're going to be found by that consumer. And even though they might not buy for another year, feed them information and technology so they can save you time, so that by the time they get to you, you only need to spend half a day with them and then they buy, because they've already done all the legwork and you don't have to. So technology is your friend, not your enemy. It saves you time and gets you more volume.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Stephen. It was very interesting to have this conversation with you.